welcome back to another powerful episode of AIBiz. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving deep into the intersection of tech and tenderness, strategy and soul, intelligence and intuition. Yeah. So let's be honest here, listeners. In a world that seems to be spinning faster with every algorithm upgrade, can we actually stay rooted in our truth? Can we still lead with heart in a world increasingly run by AI or artificial intelligence? Or maybe are we trading authenticity for the automation? There are a lot of questions, I guess. Yes. Well, joining us today is someone who has made it her mission to teach people how to lead, speak, and sell from a place of realness, and who isn't afraid to ask the hard questions or reveal the heart centered path. Yes, Bethany Long. So, welcome to the show, Bethany.
Hi, Avik. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Amazing, amazing. So Bethany, like before we start, I'll quickly have to introduce you to all the listeners. Dear listeners, Bethany is not only a mentor to hundreds of coaches through her signature sales super skills program, but also a speaker, energy worker, yoga devotee, and transformation guide. So she has walked through profound grief, rebuilt her life, and now helps others dissolve the patterns that block their brilliance. And guess what? She's not afraid of AI. She's just here to make sure it doesn't take over the heart of what we do. So get ready, friends, because this isn't just about the business, it's all about becoming, even in the age of machines. So, welcome to the show again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited about this topic. And I don't know, can I just launch right in?
Mhm.
So coming primarily from the coaching industry,
Mhm.
when Chat GPT, came out or started to take over the
Mm.
scene, there was a massive panic and
Mhm.
disruption, and people were freaking out because many coaches and consultants or we're seeing their work
Mhm.
as becoming the same as everybody else, and anybody could just become a coach, and how am I going to make a living,
Yeah.
how am I going to make money, like all of these things, right? So there was a massive panic, and perhaps rightfully so at first, like who knows, right? Nobody knows really how this was going to come to fruition. And again, you can take that, as you even said, Avik, to the wider
Mm.
community, the wider audience, that there are people who love the AI, and there are people who are still pretty panicked about
Mm.
it. And what I know to be true is that when you are using AI, and again, people could very well
Mm.
just pop something into Chat GPT and say, I want to talk on this, and do a talk and coach people, like they really could. And perhaps they would get results, perhaps they wouldn't, right? That remains to be seen. But why would we even want to put heart
Mm.
to ourselves and make sure that leads, working in tandem with the AI? Like that's like the big question, because maybe it's just fine. And
Mm.
what I would say to that is people are craving an experience. They're craving
Mm.
a connection, and we can say it's from, COVID, but I would say probably even before that.
Yeah.
As everything is going faster, as like you said, time is going faster, algorithms are going faster, everything is moving faster.
Mm.
People are getting more lonely and more disconnected from each other.
Yeah.
And so AI, I will laugh because when I started to use
Mm.
ChatGPT, and I know there's a million other ways of using AI, I'll probably just, talk
Yeah.
about this major one because it's,
Mm.
influences me directly. But when I started using it, I was like,
Mm.
wow, I can actually see why people may fall in love with this whole ChatGPT, with all these beautiful ways they're talking to me. And I felt so heard and seen. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm like the best thing ever. I'm like the best coach here, from all the ways I'm being guided by ChatGPT. And, and it's funny, but can it replace the human? Can it replace the soul? Can it replace the heart?
Mm.
That remains to be seen. But what is definitely true is that,
Mm.
you know, entrepreneurs, coaches, business folks, but definitely entrepreneurs and coaches for sure, We want to lead with our heart. We want to lead with our soul. It is what actually differentiates us from
Mm.
robots and from AI. It is that part of
Yeah.
us. N When I just came back from a workshop this past weekend, and I met a Scottish fiddler, and he was so amazing, and apparently he's so great that he can just fiddle away, anything he hears, right? So but we were talking, and he said, "You know, Bethany, your work is so important to get people into that heart, to get people into that soul." And again, not necessarily related to AI, but in the way the world seems to be somewhat shifting, he was talking about the Scottish Conservatory. And he said, what's
Great.
happening over there is they're churning out musicians who all sound the same.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, you get these, incredible musicians, these incredible, humans
Yeah.
all sounding the same, right? And that's exactly what can happen when we don't connect with our own
Mm.
soul, our own heart when using AI. And I would say in this world. In this
True.
world. Never mind Mr.
Uh,
AI. So I thought that was pretty powerful. And again, I could just keep on going because I have so much to say. But if you ever want to interrupt me, you just say, stop.
no, I really, really love that. I really love that. And when we're talking about the world, so I just wanted to bring this like, uh, I'm a bit curious, like, what does authenticity mean here? Because, uh, and in a world leaning more and more into AI, do you ever feel like authenticity is being aced out, or is there a deeper opportunity here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And and look, the reality is everybody's throwing around authenticity, right? And it's like
Yeah.
irritating, right? It's irritating because it's overused, it's irritating. And what does that even mean, right? And so I like to try to say heart and soul and try to get closer to it because it really is a feeling more than it is like a thing. But right, you're right. Like there's so much AI, there's so much of the
Mm.
technology and is it does it even matter anymore? Like does authenticity
Mm.
even matter anymore? And what I would say is that when take that Scottish conservatory example where everybody starts to sound the same, and then
Mm.
we're using AI, we're using all of our, as we're coming through with AI
Mm.
and just, you have around the world and coaches and people using
Mm.
it, right, to create things, to create
Yeah.
pages, to create content. We all start to sound the same and it becomes really boring. And maybe that's not a bad thing. I don't know. But what I can say right now is with going back to the loneliness, going back to what humans are craving, and this is what I hear all the time. And again, it's not, I mean, are people sort of saying it out loud like, I'm lonely? Not really. Maybe not, right? Maybe
Mm.
not. But when we look at how
Yeah.
people are connecting and how they're not connecting and what they're craving. And again, what I see when I talk to even the coaches and when we have events and we're talking to the people who are coming to events, they're looking for connection. They're looking for the experience. They're looking for a deeper soul,
Mm.
heart connection. And what that does is and again, going back to what is authenticity, it's the realness, it's the passion, and
Yeah.
going beyond that, it's your authenticity is like the goofy, quirky, weird things that you do,
Mm.
right? All the filters, all the ways we're trying to screen out what makes us an individual, what makes us not that
Mm.
perfect ideal, what makes us not what is in the still in the magazines, still on the shows, still in all the movies,
Yeah.
all the things, right? Everything that doesn't make us that, and well, I was like, we won't even go there about how half of that's not
Mm.
real either. But right? And we're striving for this ideal, we're striving for this perfection, but the perfection is actually what keeps us trapped. The perfection, the performance, the proving, right? The proving, it all goes down to self-worth, right? Which, who knew to go to AI and talk about self-worth, but it all goes down to that piece of it. And the protection, the performance, the proving is all layers, is all the barriers that
Mm.
keep us at a distance from each other and keep us from not being able to see the soul, the heart, the authenticity,
Yeah.
the realness, the juiciness. And again, I say it's the quirks, it's the funny things, it's the silliness,
Mm,
it's the, the fierceness, it's the passion. It's how you might talk to
mm,
somebody when you're not being recorded. It's how you might talk to somebody when
yeah,
you're really passionate about something. That's the authenticity. And we
mm,
try to scrub that clean and sanitize because that's what we're taught. We're taught that in corporate. We're taught that as we grow up, right? We're supposed to be
mm,
perfect little angels that are doing all these things. It's easier to parent, right? When we have perfect little angels. And there's nothing wrong with doing a great job and a good job and
mm,
striving for greatness. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it becomes a shield, when it
yeah,
becomes a wall, which is ultimately what it
mm,
becomes, a container, a confined container, some people can stay there forever. But then you get
yeah,
people like me and perhaps you, some of your listeners who have experienced, then the heart and the soul starts to really knock loud
mm,
and really loud to say, this is not okay. This is not how we want to live anymore. And we need to
mm,
do something about it. And I can even share my own experience with that. And
okay,
this is again, it echoes many of the entrepreneurs that I
mm,
work with, but you're going along so fine. And I was in,
yeah,
for the last 18 years, I've been in a career and I've been
mm,
leading a coaching company with a friend of mine. We went into it
mm,
together, became an international company. It was like my dream work, right? It was doing the work that I love. And I love working with, like you said, sales conversations and
mm,
marketing and branding and all of that, but with the deep inner soul and heart that has to come together. The work has to come together.
yeah,
And, or else, again, you just sound like everybody else. And so that's what I was doing. And I loved it, working with lots of entrepreneurs.
mm,
And then about halfway through, I started to kind of get the feeling and the knock. And it was like, you're fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I just kept saying, everything's fine. And the
mm,
knock would sound like, aren't you gonna do your own thing? Like, when's
mm,
that gonna happen? Because I started out working on my own and then collaborated. And again, really loved it. It was the dream. It was the dream job for me. And then the knock kept getting louder and louder, but I was, it's all the golden
mm,
handcuffs. It's the, "No, this is okay, like, I don't wanna leave. It's
mm,
comfortable."
mm,
It's great. But what I was not allowed to do was, and I could be me within a constrained form, right? But the soul was calling me to grow, to do my own video,
yeah,
do my own social media, do my own work, have my own events, do my own thing, right? That's what it
mm,
was calling me to do. And so you can only ignore those knocks for so long because then they keep getting louder and louder and louder. And although I had freedom to be me within these constraints, it still wasn't enough. And
mm,
so now the knock gets louder, and then all of a sudden, guess what? There's no more job anymore because the company is getting dissolved.
yeah,
She was the CEO of the company and the face of the company, right? And so I was like, "Oh shit. Oops, what do I do now?" And guess what? My friends laughed. My close friends knew because they were like, "Well, it's about time because you've
mm,
been saying you want to do this on your own. You've been saying, but you just kind of get comfortable there." And so now that's what happens. So the soul calls, the heart calls. There's always some kind of calling.
mm,
It's never without some kind of knocking. But it just gets becomes a two by four over the head if you don't
mm.
actually take the action and go forward with it.
Wow, lovely. That's amazing. And like, there's this cultural resistance to trusting the heart, and
Totally.
we hear like it all the time. Like, that's not business, or
Yes.
don't take it personally. But
Yes.
actually, you say the heart is non-negotiable. So how do we start trusting it again?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has been sort of beaten out of us, and
Mm,
it's too soft, right? So
mm,
to connect with the heart, it's too soft. Why would we want to do that? And how does that? And aren't I going to be rolled
mm,
over? How can I have
mm,
negotiations? How can I have contracts? How can I do sales conversations when I'm,
mm,
quote unquote, too soft? And we have been very much conditioned, and it doesn't always feel safe, right, to honor the heart. So, especially if you've come from a place where you've been very, pretty rigid,
mm,
again, like the perfectionism, like I was saying, the
yeah.
performance. and all the metrics, right? And then in a lot of those places, if you tried to show a little bit of you, maybe a little bit was okay, but if you tried to show a little bit more, it was probably smacked down, probably wasn't okay, and you had to
Mm.
kind of conform within that culture, right? And so it gets beaten out of us. And now you're I can give the example of your and some people start their own business and they're starting in their coaching and consulting business and they lost trust in themselves, they've lost their title, they've lost their team, right? And now it's all about them and it's very exposing and it has you being way more visible and there's fear of
Mhm.
judgment. And that's really what following the heart
Mm.
implies that, we're gonna be judged, you're a fool, why are you doing that? And that is a very persuasive very persuasive for many of
Mhm.
us, that just that fear and that judgment, and maybe we've made a wrong choice before and we're like, "Well, I tried to follow the heart before,
Mhm.
but it didn't happen," and I went down this
Mm.
wrong path, instead of maybe seeing it as a challenge, instead of maybe seeing it as, "Oh, this is where we're heading, right? This is actually good, but there are gonna be some
Mhm.
challenges in the way. Just because we follow the heart doesn't mean everything goes swimmingly, right? Doesn't mean it's all perfect and smooth. That's not true. And so to start, feeling and connecting with the
Mm.
heart, there's some very simple things that we can do because it has been beaten out of us and it has been almost, I mean, it's, I want to say like shameful almost to even follow your heart. Like you're really a fool. And I put the heart sort of with the intuition because they work together, right? The heart and the intuition work together. So
Mm.
we're following sort of a gut instinct, but when we connect that with the heart, it becomes
Mm.
more where the gut can kind of keep you safe and as can the heart, but the heart is
Yeah.
more of the dreamer. The heart has more of the bigger vision, even than the
Mhm.
intuition can. Okay. But then you put the
Okay.
two together, right? You put the two together. And so simple ways of following the heart is, and this sounds so crazy and foolish, but
Yeah.
to breathe, right? You want to breathe. Most of us are barely even breathing. And so when we take a deep breath and we put our hand on our heart, which again, it
Mm.
sounds too simple, but it's starting that reconnection process. And
Yeah.
what you can start to do is just talk to your heart and
Mhm.
say, okay, I feel you. And maybe you have a decision to make that day, but like a small, like you start with like, what am I going
Mm.
to have for lunch? Right. So maybe there's some kind of small decision we want to make. And we say,
Mhm.
okay, heart, what would you like for lunch? And we
Mhm.
practice listening. Which again, it sounds crazy, but
Yeah.
as you start to reconnect and reestablish that
Mm.
relationship again, the heart starts to open up and say, "Oh, okay, we're listening now." And you
Mm.
can start to act on these benign little baby decisions that aren't going to impact anything, right? I mean, if like you think your heart says, we're going to
Mm.
have an ice cream for lunch, maybe that's not the end of the world, and maybe we just try it and see what happens, right? Because what we're missing also by leaving the heart out of the equation is more magnetism, so we're pulling in what we want. We're pulling
Mm.
in our perfect customers and clients and all of that, but we're also missing out on major joy and pleasure and fun. And that I think is one of the most devastating pieces of this phenomena that's happened because if you look outside your window and you start to see people,
Mm.
not only are they lonely, but they're also very sad and not having fun anymore, right? When we're not following
Mhm.
the heart, we're exhausted and burnout
Mhm.
happens. So that's when the nervous system starts to kind of shut down and starts to get everything just gets
Mhm.
much harder. Whereas it kind of works for a while when we just kind of ignore it and just use adrenaline and cortisol. But there's always a cost to that. So when we start to re-engage the heart and start to even just put our hand on the heart again and just say, okay, I've
Mhm.
got you. And start with just the little baby decisions and see how that goes as it starts to open up. And then you can start to make bigger decisions. And again, when I had a big decision to make and it was, go, are you just going to go
Mhm.
corporate or go, go that route? It seems easier, maybe it
Yeah.
seems easier than just doing this whole thing on my own. but my heart was such a strong no, like absolutely hells to the no. Like there was
Mm.
such a strong no, and it's like, "Okay." And then might feel a little jittery, might feel a little like, "Oh, oh."
Mm.
And then the energy starts moving through our body, and that's called aliveness. And we're alive instead of some of sort of these dead decisions, right, that we've been making. So that's just one
Mm.
little baby strategy, but it's
Yeah.
don't underestimate the power of
Mm.
it because it's you've gotta bring it back online and
Mm.
re-engage it.
Wow. Amazing. Lovely. Bethany, I mean, this conversation has been nothing sort of electric, I'd say. I mean, you have reminded us that the heart is not the opposite of intelligence, it's the intelligence. So, um, in a world of AI prompts, automated funnels, and digital everything, it's the human touch, the deep presence, and the brave authenticity that will always stand out. So, to everyone who's listening, maybe today is the day to slow down, breathe deeper, and ask, what would my heart do next? Yep. So, let that question guide you, not just in your business, but in your life. And before you move, I'll quickly ask Bethany, I mean, if someone wants to connect with you, what would be the best medium to connect?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Bethany Long, and I would love to I share lots of tips and strategies and go even deeper into this and other
Mm.
topics and connecting that with your, the heart with your sales, with your marketing and how they come together with your branding. So yeah, that's a great place to find me.
Wow. Lovely. So, great, dear listeners. I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And until next time, this is your host, Avik. And it's a reminder that your healthy mind starts with your whole heart. So, thank you so much.